So I want people to tame their expectations. This is going to be a more informative kind of segment here, but I want people to tame their expectations. And there's two things that you can learn from this. The number one thing, obviously, is just how I did it, how Rippaverse was conceptualized, what happened, how we were able to get in the position that we got in. The other part is I want you to understand that if you are anybody in any industry as you see success, and if you're public, you're going to get a bunch of know-it-alls. And there's going to be people who have no idea what the hell they're talking about. They're going to try to say that you could have did something else. And they're concern trolling. That's the proper term for it. But with the Rippaverse, you guys know I spent $200,000 to $300,000 between those to make the company pop. That was to prepare all the prints. That was to prepare everything. We're going to go through it. I made a post trying to explain this to someone because I knew that it would be helpful to all of you. But I had figured I'd do a video about it. Like this guy right here, the reason why I responded to him, he says, "You suck at finances for 200K being your totally legitimate starting company, comic book company. Did you get scammed by page rates?" So the argument is that considering how we did it, somehow 200K was too much. So what I'm going to do here is go through everything that we did in order to get to the point it is that we're at. Okay. So let's first start off with the first thing that we had to do. Okay. Aside from, right, we're not talking about the content itself that I created, right? So my labor that's into that, even though I didn't pay myself. First things first is that there's going to be lawyer fees if you're trying to future-proof yourself and you're trying to set yourself up for success. That's just how it is. Considering how our company is set up, we have this spread out through 3 different LLCs. And obviously all of them have binding agreements. You know, certain LLCs, certain one will, you know, we handle like the properties themselves. Others we will handle like my employees are under this one, and you know that's where our publishing stuff is, as well as like other ones that are more dedicated towards the like even my personal stuff. So we have it spread across 3 LLCs, and because there has to be binding agreements, because with the nature of this business, you're working with contractors, and I have employees, I have all that. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. Well, that's costs money, and to get all that created, everything filed, as I documented right now, pertaining to the properties and the characters of the Rippaverse, it costs tens of thousands of dollars to have my lawyers be able to do that. The next thing is that any company that grows, like if you don't have to deal with this if you're a small company and you do everything yourself. But if you are a expanding company, especially one that explodes like we did, considering the demand, you're going to have a payroll, right? You're going to have employees, you're going to have contractors, right? As I documented here, you know, with the payroll, including in that, I had 2 industry vets. You guys need to understand that. I didn't pick 2 Joe Blows off the streets. That's why I hit Will to do ISOM. Cliff Richards is an industry vet. Gabe El Taib industry vets. I paid them actually better than what they were getting working for mainstream guys and doing mainstream work. Okay, so they did that work, and they did a killer job. Did a fantastic job. And I paid them very competitive rates. This is not some 15-page story floppy with 5-6 pages of ads. That's not what this is. This is a 96-page book. So I paid them for exactly that. Okay. And that costs a lot of money considering their page rates, not to mention the colorist, not to mention the pre-press, not to mention the letterer. Those are all individual jobs there that we had to pay people as contractors to have done. You're not going to pay a good artist, right? Definitely if he's doing the pencil and ink, you're not going to be spending less than 200, 250. Like, you're going to spend a lot of money to make that happen, right? Going into 300s when you start getting into some of these great artists. The same thing can be said to some of these colorists. You're talking about on the page rate of, if you're trying to be comparable, on the page rates to on the upward of downward really of $125, $150, more than that, depending on how good they actually are and what their rates are. Okay, so you can keep that in mind. Like just between those 2, Gabe and Cliff, we were paying tens of thousands of dollars to make a 96-page book happen. In addition to this, like I said, we have day-to-day staff. So I have all of my guys that you see, and not everybody was here, but a lot of them were. You know, Andrew, Carol, like these people were all here already. You know what I mean? As we were launching the actual company, you know, and of course, immediately with us adding the people that we have, whether it be Brandon and all these guys who we had, you know, when I needed people like this costs money to do stuff. Okay. Like this costs money. And now my team is, you know, we got like almost a dozen people. Like it costs money to make stuff like this happen. Okay. It's not, and they're paying now, you know, that I have them full time. You know, I had some people part time, but now all my part time guys are full time employees. Okay. Moving on, as it stays right here, moving on to printing. And that was one of the benchmark goals that we had, that I would turn people in full time that were part time. So moving on to printing. We have had over 90,000 books printed, right? So you need to understand that. I printed ahead of time. We have 60,000 that sold. We had 90,000 printed, so we could have, I can get my page rate down, number one, so I don't have to go through a reprint. We get our page rate down, so we have a bunch of cover C's to take us through the next year and some change depending on when they go out. This idiot is the same idiot who, I don't know where he's getting this information from, but this idiot said he could get a 96-page book on $2, or hardcover on $2. I'm going to tell you right now, nobody in the country is doing a 96-page book for only $2 a book that has a hardcover. That's impossible. You're not getting that to happen. It's impossible. Keep in mind, I don't know where he got that information from. Like that let me know right off the rip, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. You guys who, like, definitely some of you independent guys, you know how much it costs to print. Nobody's paying less than $2 to get something like that happen. So even with our quantity, right, you're going to pay a lot. Also, keep in mind, this is another thing that you guys maybe don't understand. There's a thing called paper stock, okay? And depending on what kind of paper that you get, obviously is going to deflate or inflate the cost. The industry standard is like a 60-pound, sometimes matte, sometimes gloss, interior paper. That's all that cheap shit that you get, even with the trades from the other company. That's the industry standard. Ours was 80 for ISOM 1. That's 2 grades above the industry standard. That's why it's a sturdy book that has, and it also is Smyth's song, right, as well. So you have the printing and you had the binding, right? That alone was going to be the most expensive project that we had. Okay, that's just the facts of the matter. Okay, so it's going to cost money. And so the old saying is, it takes money to make money. I went 2 grades of paper stock above the industry standard. I also didn't, because it wasn't just a simple perfect bind with it being Smyth's song. It costs more because of that. I really wanted to show y'all the quality that it is. Now we're gonna change some things going into ISOM 2, but that was what ISOM 1 was. Okay, it costs a lot of money to make, right? You're not gonna spend less than, you know, if you print maybe to that quantity, you may can try to get it to $3, $2, $3. Good luck, but if you're printing in smaller quantities, it's just not gonna happen. Considering that we also sold shirts, we sold posters, we sold cards, all that costs money, right? And we're talking across them tens of thousands of products, like in quantity, right? There was 11 cards, for example, in each deck, and they had the treatment that they had with it being, you know, it wasn't holofoil, it wasn't holographic. But it had treatment on the actual design of the actual card. Do I have one here? I don't think I have one here. But you guys saw how it is, right? It is it was a great looking card, let's say that. And we had our custom boxes, right? We didn't go with the typical Gemini mailer. We went with a custom box that was sturdy. And we had to do that because we're our own distributor, okay? And most companies don't do that. They don't. Most of Image doesn't distribute their own work. Marvel doesn't distribute their own work. DC doesn't distribute their own work. Dark Horse, Boom. None of these guys distribute their own work. The standard is to go through an actual distributor. It used to be just Diamond. Now it's Diamond, Lunar, and Penguin Random House, and maybe there's some other guys in between. But for the most part, that's how it's done. We distribute our work ourselves. So I'm the one that has to employ these, like my guys that are working in the warehouse. I have to have all the supplies there to ship it, and including the boxes and all of that stuff. That's stuff that we had to pay for ahead of time, of course, to make sure that we got these products out for you. Not to include the actual equipment that it costs, as well as the rental, the mortgage, whatever you're paying for a warehouse itself. Okay, it's gonna cost money to do something like that. To put that into context, you're not gonna spend for, let's say, if you got a 9,000 or 10,000 square foot in this area where I'm at, you're not paying less than 15 grand a month to have a warehouse of that size. That's just a fact. Okay. Not one that's any decent. Okay. It costs money, as well as the supplies, the racking system, the lift that we have, the pallet, which is essentially a power stack, that it costs money. So you could see how it ran up easily before we ever asked anybody for money, because we didn't crowdfund. Before we ever asked anybody for money, that was how much we were spending. It takes money to make money, but I think there's two types of people here. You got people that are completely ignorant on it, that think they understand how things work. And then you have people who are well-intended that don't just understand. Doing the way I did it, and my model is not probably the best model for every individual. I think it works for people that have the startup cost, that can do it. I think it's worth entertaining, but you're going to work more than you have ever in your life. But if you are an up-and-comer who has some aspirations, just understand to take care of yourself, just the different aspects of book creation that you're going to, if you're creating a book, definitely if you're working with other people, how much money you're going to have to spend. It's business, right? It is business, and most people don't understand it. And this is why I like the fact that the Rippaverse is as transparent as we are. That's one thing that we pride ourselves in, because it lets people in on kind of that process. This is stuff that the big dogs will never let you in on. So you got to tame your expectations, but that also applies to stupid people who have no idea how business works. Unfortunately, they talk as if they do and try to concern troll and make it seem like you're doing something, like, say, incorrectly, and they have all the answers. If they had all the answers, I suggest that you put that to the test and actually, I don't know, go make books. Do it yourself. You'll find that it can get up there in cost. Wherever you're viewing the content, I appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, you may be interested in my comic book company, Rippaverse Comics. Our first book and campaign, ISOM #1, brought in $3.7 million with tens of thousands of satisfied customers. Visit Rippaverse.com to check out our store and stay up to date with the latest campaigns from one of the hottest new comic book companies. Also, my first big step towards a parallel economy was the development of my personal website, ericdjuly.com. This entirely replaced my Patreon. Now, if you enjoy this content, please consider becoming a member over at the website. We have an ever-expanding list of perks for various membership tiers, a forum, and a phone app. Some of these perks will even benefit you if you're fans of the Rippaverse. Anyway, I appreciate you so much for being a supporter and or customer. I even got a little love for my haters.